Hello, and welcome to another edition of AppSec Decoded. I'm Taylor Armerding, security advocate with the Synopsys Software Integrity Group, and today we're going to be talking about DevSecOps, the seamless integration of development, security, and operations teams working together in blissful and productive harmony. At least that's the goal. The reality is that embedding security into DevOps has been a bit of a heavy lift for a long time, decades. And that reality is supported by the Global State of DevSecOps 2023, a recent survey of 1,000 IT professionals by the Synopsys Cybersecurity Research Center and international market research consultancy Censuswide. So joining me to talk about that is one of our resident experts on the topic, Stephen Zimmerman, a DevOps security solutions manager with the Synopsys Software Integrity Group. So welcome, Stephen. Thank you very much for joining AppSec Decoded. And to start, you have noted in recent webinars that I've listened to that the need for DevSecOps is obvious, given that software is the #1 attack surface for cybercriminals. So why hasn't DevSecOps been mainstream for years?
I think one thing to remember about DevSecOps, that portmanteau of DevSec and Ops, is it's effectively just a combination of the contributions, the support, the work, and the effort of various teams and contributors, from development to security to various operational functions. And so each of those people have a different role that they have to perform. They've got different workflows and ways of operating, different tools that they're using. And I think importantly, they've all got different ways of defining success. And so security is really the result of efforts that we're taking on, right? We can't do security. We can take steps to try and have security, a more positive security risk posture be the result of our efforts. And the reality is it can just be difficult to align these various teams to have security become part of their focus of their day-to-day tasks. Some legacy testing tools that we've been using for decades, static analysis, some people regard penetration testing and some more manual tests, things like that, as kind of fitting into this process. But some of those legacy tests we're all familiar with, and we've had decades to architect our workflows, whether it's a development workflow or otherwise, around those legacy tests. But now we've got new software components, containers, infrastructure as code, templates, we've got serverless functions, things like that. There's all these new technologies that can present new attack vectors for cyber criminals, like you mentioned. And so now we need to layer on the tests that help identify security risks within those. And so that's kind of what starts ruffling some feathers, so to speak, layering on these new types of testing. And importantly, we have to make sure that because we have DevSec and Ops roles as part of these programs, we have to close those feedback loops so that each team knows when there's new risks, and then when each team knows that those risks have been resolved. And that takes teamwork. It takes strategy and planning. And that's really just a barrier that not everyone's really ready to overcome at this point in time. And that's probably why it's not wholly mainstream quite yet.
The Synopsys census-wide survey that we've been talking about, it found that more than half of respondents reported, and this was self-reporting, that they're able to fix critical defects within 3 weeks. And that sounds painfully slow, given how fast hackers can exploit a known vulnerability. What can help improve that response time?
Yeah, this was a really interesting finding from the report. And I think the more I dug into it, the more interesting it becomes when you consider time to remediation and its importance as a metric, as an assessment of our DevSecOps program. Time to remediation is, I kind of regard it as sort of the window of opportunity for an attack, from the time that we find out that something may be vulnerable, or the time that we detect an issue in our software, to then prioritizing it, to then fixing it. That can be a lengthy process for some. And again, that's the window of opportunity for an attack. So I think one of the ways that we can improve response times, if you consider that spectrum from detection to prioritization to
Right.
remediation, testing more frequently throughout the pipeline. So that's using pipeline integration to allow us to do automated testing, whether it be at the IDE level or within source code repos or at build. And that's going to help accelerate our time to detection. So again, we're shortening that window of opportunity by accelerating detection.
Yep.
And now we're also, through automation, we can apply policies on top of all of that so that we make sure that our organizations or our security teams' unique risk tolerances are reflected in that, so that we take into consideration the environmental context or the application level context to
Right.
help prioritize whether or not issues should be fixed. So that then accelerates that fixed prioritization and
Mhm.
accelerates that feedback loop and that notification to development teams that something does need to be fixed.
Right.
And then lastly, once a developer is aware that a fix needs to be made, providing that remediation guidance and some security training at the developer level, so that they know how to fix something that they probably introduced into the software inadvertently in the first place. And
Yeah.
that's where we abbreviate that time to fix. So
Right.
in each of those three categories, we can really make some improvements.
As you and others have noted, security and DevSecOps maturity is a journey or process, not an event. And the survey asked respondents to judge themselves where their organizations are on a scale of 1 to 5. And it sounds like they were pretty honest about it, because a lot of them didn't give themselves rave reviews. So tell us what an organization that's on the way, let's say level 3 or 4, looks like, and what they still need to achieve.
Yeah, we found a lot of very interesting data when we mapped maturity against other responses. When you compare an organizational self-identified DevSecOps maturity against time to remediation, how frequently they run tests, their challenges, or things
Mhm.
that were contributed to the success of their DevSecOps programs, it really paints an interesting picture. So when one of the things that I did notice when I started examining potential trends among organizations of different maturity levels in terms of DevSecOps maturity. A lot of organizations seem to kind of begin early in their maturation process with the pipeline integration and that testing technology phase that we've talked about. And it seems to be that a lot might try and do this to cover the spectrum of technologies that are flowing through their pipeline to make sure that they identify any risks associated with those technologies, and then to avoid clogging that pipeline. That seems to be
Okay.
the trend of beginning there in your level 1, level 2 maturation process. Once we get to those 3s and 4s, as you described, we start to really see them focusing on that security culture and that organizational alignment that we discussed. So we start seeing the establishment of dedicated cross-functional DevSecOps teams, and developer security training really started to become a little bit more intrinsic. And so these 3s and 4s really started focusing on refining their pipeline for efficiency,
Mhm.
and then making sure that each of the contributing teams were able to derive success from their participation. And then
Right.
those level 5s, those those prized level 5s,
Mhm.
they focused on scalability and replicability,
Yeah.
and consolidation of the technologies and the processes that they're using. It seems to be that the main impetus for doing this is so that it puts them in a position to scale as the business grows and evolves, because it seems to be as our respondents grow in DevSecOps maturity, they become more averse to implementing an AppSec program that they have to update again and replace and modify. And again, that in and of itself can become an impediment to security and an impediment to operations, which are really just contradictory to DevSecOps categorically.
Well, thank you very, very much, Stephen. We will have to leave it there, but you can get much more detail from the Global State of DevSecOps 2023 survey, which sort of has information on how you can reach that level 5 penthouse of DevSecOps. It's available for free at synopsys.com. And until next time, thank you, our online audience, for joining us. Once again, I'm Taylor Armerding with the Synopsys Software Integrity Group. We help organizations build trust into their software.